The topic of this video is one that I have discussed before, and to some extent I admit I'm beating an already dead horse here, but I want to bring you all a completely different perspective on Todd Howard's quote than I did last time. Link to the last video will be in the description, by the way, in case any of you missed it. As many of you may or may not know, Howard briefly mentioned the Elder Scrolls 6 at E3. He said, and I quote here, "Elder Scrolls 6 is kind of like the elephant in the room always when we talk about anything, and I think it's good in these moments to tell our fans, yes, of course we are working on it, it's something we love, but it is, and I have to be careful with what I say, but it's a very long time off." I could sit here and explain the game to you, and you would say, that sounds like you don't even have the technology. So it is something that's going to take a lot of time, what we have in mind for the game, and we actually have two other large projects we're also doing that are bigger than everything we've done before. People will probably hear about those even before the Elder Scrolls 6. That'll make sense many years from now. Now, Howard's remarks on the release time for the Elder Scrolls 6 are open to interpretation, so I don't want to draw any firm conclusions, but it does seem that Howard is indicating the Elder Scrolls 6 may not happen for at least a few years. Here's the thing though, I think it's really easy to get caught up in the words many years and not notice the rest of the quotation. At first glance, I thought the final sentence was the most important part of the quotation, but I no longer think that's the case. The most important thing to take away from this is the first part from the second paragraph, which once again reads, "I could sit here and explain the game to you and you would say, that sounds like you don't even have the technology." This is actually a stronger statement than Howard just flat out saying that he himself thinks Bethesda doesn't have the technology, and here's why. Developers are very familiar with the inner workings of their games, and if the technological hurdle is something subtle, then that would be something a developer might be able to see, but probably not a normal fan. A normal fan might look at such a technological hurdle and say, that doesn't really seem like too big a deal. But here's the thing, according to Howard, the technological hurdle for the Elder Scrolls 6 is such that if he explained it to us, to normal fans, we would say something like, that's crazy. I don't think you can do that with current technology. In other words, whatever Bethesda has planned for the Elder Scrolls 6, they think it's going to be really impressive. The bottom line is that Bethesda has something planned for the Elder Scrolls 6 that is technologically impossible right now, which means there's going to be some sort of feature or addition or maybe something special with the location that we're not expecting. As for exactly what that something is, I'm really not too sure, but it is clear that Bethesda wants to make the Elder Scrolls 6 really special. Many have jumped to the conclusion that Bethesda is delaying the Elder Scrolls 6 because they're moving away from the Elder Scrolls franchise, or perhaps they want to focus less on it, but I would say this quotation proves the complete opposite. Bethesda is holding off on the Elder Scrolls 6 precisely because they want to vastly improve on all of the previous Elder Scrolls games and give us an experience that is truly satisfying. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to go that way, I'm saying that's what Bethesda seems to want to do here. Now, at the same time, I admit it's important to be skeptical since Howard is to some extent trying to generate hype for the game, but I don't think that makes this statement completely non-credible. I also want to point out that Howard said Bethesda is working on two projects right now that are bigger than everything they've done before, and yet the Elder Scrolls 6 seems to be even beyond those two projects, at least from a technological point of view. Another thing I should also mention is I think this quotation does shed some light on the location of the Elder Scrolls 6, since generally speaking there are three settings that pose extreme technological barriers to Bethesda, so I believe Bethesda is holding off on the Elder Scrolls 6 because it is taking place in one of these three locations. The first of the two locations I'm referring to are Valenwood and Elsewhere. The reason why Valenwood and Elsewhere are so technologically taxing is because Valenwood's forests are insanely beautiful and majestic, so if Bethesda really wants to do them justice, they need a lot of advanced development tools at their hands. Valenwood is home to crazy forests, walking tree cities, and other ridiculous phenomena, but beyond that, the forests of Valenwood bleed into Elsewhere, so both provinces would be pretty hard to do. The other location that would be particularly difficult is Akavir, since according to lore the weather there is extremely unnatural, and places like Kamal and Tangmo are said to be out of this world in terms of visuals, so Bethesda definitely needs some crazy technology to do Akavir justice. Of those three possibilities, Akavir does seem a bit unlikely to me, so I think it's going to be either Valenwood or elsewhere. At the same time, this is far from a definite statement of any kind, because I could see them doing some pretty crazy things with Hammerfell, the Black Marsh, and Somerset Isles, so while I think Valenwood and elsewhere are likely, that doesn't mean anything for certain. Regardless of what province it takes in, the point is that whatever sort of scenery and visuals you were expecting for this game, it's probably going to be a notch above that. Another thing I'd like to mention is we're almost definitely going to be getting a new engine with the Elder Scrolls 6. This is something that's been on Bethesda's agenda for a while, and Howard's statement about technology for the Elder Scrolls 6 makes a new engine even more likely. In fact, I actually think the new engine is going to come out far sooner than the Elder Scrolls 6, and perhaps will be used in one of the other two projects Howard mentioned, but the point is that the latest we'll get a new engine is with the Elder Scrolls 6. And then finally, I fully expect Bethesda to be doing some pretty crazy things with VR for this game, since they're already experimenting with VR, and they're already doing some pretty cool things with VR for Fallout 4, so it's definitely going to happen to some extent at least for the Elder Scrolls 6. That is also something to look forward to for sure. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. As always, if you found this video to be informative, or if you enjoyed it, be sure to drop me a like down below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, for more Elder Scrolls videos in the future. And of course, be sure to let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Do you think this new perspective on the quotation is interesting, or perhaps that it doesn't really add all that much? Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video.